Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. We have a special show and guest today as we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Something Extra podcast. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Erin Joy in front of a live audience at the Undivided Experience Center. Erin is a third-generation female entrepreneur and founder of the consulting and executive coaching company Black Dress Circle, which helps guide women-owned businesses facing a variety of challenges. Erin, I am thrilled to have you on the show today. You and I met several years ago, and the funny thing about it is you were interviewing me at the time.
Like you said, the tables turn sometimes, don't they?
They do. They do. So we have a really interesting topic here today, and I want to dive into that. But before we do, talk to me a little bit about growing up. What was growing up like for you?
Well, I grew up in a small town, Litchfield, Illinois, so I'm a Midwestern girl and a small town girl in a lot of ways, even though I'm in the big city now of St. Louis. And my parents originally were both teachers. They met in college, both of them as teachers, and when they moved to Litchfield, they had 3 kids back to back. You know, we're like 1 year apart, each of us, and 2 teacher salaries and 3 kids doesn't work very well. So my dad was looking around at some of his friends who were doing well in life and noticed that they were entrepreneurs. They were doing their own thing, you know, running their own businesses. And he left teaching and started an insurance company in the dining room of our family home.
Okay.
And my mom and dad both left teaching and worked in the dining room building that business until they were able to move it out and get their own office building. I think that was the beginning of the entrepreneurial spirit for me. It was kind of born in me at that time. And it didn't hurt that my grandmother was an entrepreneur as well.
So what did your grandmother do?
So she owned a dress shop and a restaurant in Trenton, Illinois, another small town. And she was the matriarch of the family who cared for her mother, her mother-in-law, my grandfather, who had a stroke and was disabled, and her 2 kids. So I come from a long line of hard-working men and women who are doing what they have to do to make things happen.
Wow. That just amazes me because I mean, back then, there probably weren't that many women who went out and started their own thing, right? So it wasn't like she had some of the resources that we have today.
No, not at all. Yeah, she just, made it up. She just created it from nothing.
So I believe that you, when you were young, you had a little business, did you not?
I did. We were chatting about that in our little pre-show chat. But I was always, kind of drawn to business. And I distinctly remember in that home where we had that business starting in the dining room, setting up an office, like taking boards and putting them between, I don't know, file cabinets or who knows what.
That was your cubicle.
That was my little cubicle, and I remember, playing office as a young person. And so when I started lifeguarding in my teens, I saw an opportunity to create a little business of teaching swimming lessons. And it was one thing to teach individual lessons, and it was one-on-one, but I got into Red Cross lessons and doing group lessons.
Well, you're maximizing the revenue, scaling up, right?
Exactly.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So now, can I call you Doctor?
Not yet.
I can't call you Dr. Joy. Well, it's going to be close, but you've got multiple degrees, and so tell me a little bit about that.
Well, growing up in a small town, the education system wasn't great. I didn't care about school at all in high school. just didn't care. Went to college, remember, absolutely nothing. I mean, I studied marketing, but it just didn't do anything for me. So when I got out of college, I went into the real estate business. My parents had also pursued real estate in addition to their insurance business at that time.
Brokerage?
They had a brokerage. And so I became a real estate agent. And then I eventually pivoted into consulting. And as a consultant, I knew I needed to build my credentials. And in St. Louis, having a degree from Washington University carries a lot of clout. And so I knew that would be good for business. I didn't really care that much about education at the time, or so I thought. I just wanted the clout.
Right.
And then I started taking these classes, and I loved it because as a consultant, it was so applicable to what I was doing every day with my clients. And so I kind of got hooked. And as I neared the end of my master's degree, I studied human resources management at WashU. I was inspired to go on to pursue a PhD. Again, originally for the credentials.
Right.
But
now
again,
you love it.
What I have learned is so transformational for my clients and for my own business. And for me, I'm getting a PhD to give it away. To give it away to the world, to the people that I work with. I study business psychology, so I work at the intersection of business and psychology. And my specific area of research is well-being and success among entrepreneurs. And I'm less interested how success impacts well-being, and I'm more interested on how well-being, or you could call it happiness, quality of life, how that can support an entrepreneurial journey that leads to greater success. And success in terms of relationships and health and your satisfaction with your life overall, let alone profit.
The more you know, the more you're going to be able to help your clients. So this is called embracing the entrepreneurial mindset, even if you're not one. Erin, do you believe that entrepreneurs are born or are they made?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think that they're made, and I'll share a story of my client Jackie, who was a CFO at a title company, and still has a title company. She was a CFO, and she had not been an entrepreneur previously, and an opportunity came to buy the company. And she bought the company. And she maximized the company in every way. Has her human resources systems in place, her operation systems in place, and she was able to take this company and take it to a whole next level, expanding the staff, expanding the number of offices. And she wasn't someone who historically had been an entrepreneur. She'd worked inside of a corporation. The research shows that, don't I sound smart when I say that? The research shows.
You really do. You're backing it up with data.
Backing it up with data. So the research shows that entrepreneurs do rate higher than the general population in certain characteristics. Risk tolerance is one of them. How they assess risk is different. Things like innovation and vision. But the interesting thing is that entrepreneurs and managers and leaders inside of corporations rate similarly on those things. Now, the general population, who might be teachers or, working in a hospital, maybe they're going to rate more like, again, the general population. But entrepreneurs and managers and leaders aren't that different. So I think that entrepreneurship absolutely can be developed in someone, right? You've developed yourself further as an entrepreneur. I've developed myself further. It's not like we're cooked. We're baked. We've got all the skills and all the characteristics. You know?
No, I completely agree with that. So you said something about maybe your friend actually bought the title company, but you can also be an entrepreneur. You can have an entrepreneurial mindset without owning something.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And that is really, so that's a good segue into entrepreneurism.
Yes.
So talk about that a little bit, and we need more of those. We need entrepreneurism, right?
Right. I mean, we know that entrepreneurs are starting businesses at record paces, and women are starting more businesses than anyone, and they're outperforming their male counterparts in terms of growth, and not just numbers, but
not to knock the guys.
No, I love that.
We love
men.
them too, right?
I'm single and I'm looking for a great man, so
okay. Well, we'll work on that. We'll work on that.
But there's a lot happening in entrepreneurship. And I think that the concept of entrepreneurship is so interesting because, like you said, we need that. We need people. The world needs people. The United States needs people St. Louis needs people who are innovating within their corporate organization.
right.
And that really is the definition of entrepreneurship, is innovation within a larger corporation.
Yes, and so I want to dive into that a little bit more because I know that we've had a question about innovation and how you can get even hackathons and skunk works and things like that going within your organization.
Yeah.
But let's keep diving into like the characteristics. So Erin, what about those people out there that are thinking, you know, well, I have an idea. Where would I even start? Do you go and hire a team?
So if you're starting a company, or even within an existing organization?
No, let's talk about if you're starting a company, you have an idea, and you say, well, I've got this idea, where do I start?
Yeah.
And I've got my own ideas about that, but I want to hear the research.
Right, exactly. Well, there's no question that the research points to building a network of resources, of other entrepreneurs, like we have in St. Louis. We have a very vibrant entrepreneurial support system. So tapping into those resources are absolutely critical. And I think what's interesting about networking and how it relates to entrepreneurship is that I used to think that networking was just about, you know, being well known and making connections and having people refer me business. But what we know about networking for entrepreneurs and why it's such a critical function is that is where the resources lie. All the resources lie within the network. So we have to build our networks to have the people. So for example, you know, we're here podcasting.
Yes.
I'm later launching a podcast, and I'm getting to know your podcast team. Like, are any of them freelancers or any of them available? And that's an example of my network helping me solve problems and leveraging the network. So there's no question that pulling the resources to you is critical. You know, having an idea is one thing. Vetting it out on paper and talking it through with some of those resources who will point out the flaws in the thinking is really, really important.
Right. I do believe that sometimes people jump into things without doing the homework and doing the vetting like you're talking about.
And it's an interesting tension because with entrepreneurs, if they do business planning too early, then it can actually stifle the innovation and the growth piece. So it is a really fine, you know, balance and mix to get it just right.
You're wanting to do podcasting, so you know me. So now you're kind of meeting my people, right, and our team. And years ago, I met a gentleman in Dallas. Another friend of mine said, "Hey, Lisa, do you know Bob Bodine?" And I said, "No, I don't know." And he goes, "You've got to meet Bob Bodine." I went and met Bob Bodine. Bob Bodine is like Mr. Dallas. He knows everybody. And he wrote a book. His premise is that you already know who you need to know. And it's called The Power of Who. I wanted to get it today, but I couldn't get it in time. But he said, you take the 100 people that you know, and somebody in that circle knows the resource that you need.
Totally. I have a story about that's happening in my life right now and in my business right now. I have a concept for a TV show about women entrepreneurs. And there's this one particular producer that I want to get this show in front of. And I just started talking about this show. And it feels very bold to talk about, I have an idea for a show and I want to make this thing happen. But I'm, you know, pushing through that anyway and sharing about the show. And in doing so, I was sharing with a good friend of mine. And I said, well, I'd really like to get this show pitch in front of this person. And my friend said, I'm actually going to be on his show in 2 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's a huge show out of New York City. This was bold for me to say, can I give you a packet of information to give him?
Right.
And she said, yes.
Yes.
So we're putting the packet together, and who knows where this may go. And it just really speaks to your point of everyone you need is in your network. And if your network isn't deep enough, then you know, you have people who they'll introduce you to the person. You know, you're 1 degree of separation.
So I was thinking, if you had not had the courage to tell your friend what your thoughts were, that would not have happened.
Exactly. Yeah, and then one of the things I always say, like a rule of thumb, is ask for what you want.
That's right.
And so there I was, and I just found myself asking her would she take a packet to him. Now, the packet grew into a little box, and I could hardly sleep last night as I'm thinking about I'm really imposing on her. I'm really imposing her, having her pack a box and take it to New York with her. But, you know, I'm going to give her a gift card to her favorite restaurant to thank her for it and try to grease the wheel a little bit.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That
is wonderful.
So ask for what you want and use your network. And, you know, when you say, where do you start? I think you start speaking it. You have an idea for a business, or you have an idea for an innovative project within your organization, start speaking it.
Right. So the other tenet of an entrepreneur, I would say, is resilience.
Yes.
So when things don't go well, and I don't like the word failure, I just don't like that. I think it's really, we need to change that vernacular. It's not a failure. If you learn from it, it's not a failure. And I can say 25 years of being in business, Technology Partners. Greg and I founded Technology Partners 25 years ago.
25 years ago.
This is our 25th year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But we've had some entrepreneurism within the organization that we've built.
Yeah.
We've tried things, and not everything has worked.
Of course.
So how do you coach people? I mean, that can get depressing. And in fact, studies show that 72% of entrepreneurs can suffer from depression because, I mean, it's a roller coaster ride.
It is.
Is it not?
It is. It totally is. And there's no question, if you just take the risk alone, that the personal guarantees, the people that you're employing, the loans that you take out, that pressure can definitely create the conditions for increased depression and anxiety. But, for me, with, the topic of kind of how do you handle failures or setbacks, I was reflecting on this idea not too long ago, and I was thinking about a big setback that I experienced a couple of years ago as I was producing my big conference that I now no longer produce.
Right.
Because it is just too much work. It is just way too much work. Also being a single parent and a graduate student and, having a growing business. It was too much. I suffered a big setback with that conference related to a financial aspect with the venue where I was hosting that conference. And I distinctly remember walking out of that meeting with the venue and first breaking into tears. It was bad. Then calling my coach within a few minutes, because I think that's one of the first things to do when we really suffer a big upset or setback is to get in communication. When we communicate our upsets to people who really have a keen listening, it can disappear some of the emotion of the upset. And and in doing so, we get a little distance from the issue. And when we get distance from the issue, we can think a little more rationally. So for me, with the idea of real resilience and handling failure or setback or disappointments, the first thing I do is get in communication and use my team. And people who know about me and my business and what I'm up to. Now, I also frame these things that don't go the way that I want them to in my business in a much broader picture, in that I know that every success that I have is actually born out of those setbacks or those failures. That's where all the good stuff happens. It's having done that conference and saying, like, I'm not going to do that anymore. It's too much for me. That gave me the inspiration to now do what I'm doing today in my business, which is more on track with my purpose. And so I have trained myself to have a mindset, and I think any of us can train ourselves to have the mindset to say, something good is coming, because this is really bad. So something good is coming. I don't know what it is yet, but it's going to
I'm going to be ready for it.
I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be on the lookout for it. I know that I'm getting good stories out of this that I'm going to leverage sometime later in my life for books or podcasts or speaking engagements, whatever it could be, sharing with my clients. When my clients come in and they're in the thick of it, I know what they're going through. So I think that we can all develop that mindset to say, something good is coming.
I love that. I love that. We're all going to take that with us. And it's not fun. It doesn't mean those things are fun, but they do shape you.
Yes.
That is for sure. You just talked about the resilience piece. What are some of the other tenets, like when you're starting? And I'm just going to say, when you have that idea, I love what you said, start speaking it. Start speaking it to your tribe or to your support network. Very crucial to have that support network. And then maybe before you go out and get Series A funding.
Right.
Because that's always a question. How do you fund this? Again, you said the word risk. It's measured risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Knowing what is your risk tolerance. Because obviously you still have to pay the bills.
That's right.
So
I've been a single mom. I've been single my entire adult life, essentially. And I've been, the one paying the bills for almost, I think I'm in my 25th year of entrepreneurship. So that's a dance I know well. And I agree, it is measured risk. And I love what Beyonce said about this. She said, I don't like to gamble, but if there's one thing I'm willing to bet on, it's myself.
Oh, I love that. What a great quote.
And again, we can build that mindset, right? So when you think about, are entrepreneurs born or made? I don't think you're born with that mindset, but over time, you can pay attention to things that make you feel bad and scared and have you not take action. Or you can maybe look over here, where when you look over here, you feel good, you feel empowered, and you're inspired to take action.
And I know, especially women, I'm sure men have this mindset as well, but sometimes women, they have the I'm not enough. And I love that quote. And sometimes, guess what? I would just say, sometimes I am not enough. But I know where to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know where to go. You look back in times past where you have had success and you know that you can go back there. But the thing that I really want to say, and especially like if there are young people listening, know yourself. I know myself. I've done the DISC, I've done the Myers-Briggs, I've done the Strength Finders. There's a group in Dallas, which is really funny to me, the Flippin' Group.
Oh, I know Flippin' Group.
Do you know the Flippin' Group?
I do. They do great work.
Flippin' is the Flippin' Group. I know. It almost sounds like a made-up name.
It does, yeah.
But it's about the other side. And I've always been a person that believes in working from your strength zones.
Yeah.
But I also do believe that you need to know where those constraints are.
Yeah, and where your vulnerabilities are.
And where your vulnerabilities are. And then you surround yourself with people that can help fill in the gaps.
Yes.
So we can't be all things, but how do you bolster yourself to say, I can do this? Where does that confidence, where does that courage come from?
Well, for me, it 100% comes from a commitment that I made in early 2000s when I realized that I could create anything I wanted in my life. I had been doing some deep personal development work, and I was clear that what I had in life, I had created it. I was not by any stretch a victim of my circumstances, a victim. It wasn't an accident where I was. And I knew that I could create anything. So what I dedicated myself to is making a positive impact in the world, specifically with women entrepreneurs all over the world. And so when I am practicing, all the time practicing, truing myself up to that's really what I'm doing, is I'm here to make a difference, then that bolsters me.
Oh, for sure.
Right? It bolsters me in the setbacks. It keeps me focused on what to spend my time on, what not to spend time on, and what's going to forward that mission. And so I think when we go back to whether you're working in a corporation or you're starting a business or you have a business, why you're doing what you're doing has to be crystal clear. And it doesn't mean that your why has to be, kind of fluffy and making a difference. It could be that you want to be an amazing provider for your family. And that is what really drives you. There's nothing that says that it has to be altruistic. But whatever it is, knowing what it really is and not sugarcoating it is really critical. I always say, I want to make a huge difference, and I want to make a bunch of money in the profit in the process.
Why not? Why not? Well, when you were doing the Midwest Business Owners Conference, that was a huge conference. I went to that a few years, and that was a lot for you to pull off. But you said, I'm not going to do that anymore. So sometimes it is the addition by subtraction.
Yes.
And you said something else that I think is so crucial. You know where to focus and where not to focus.
Yeah.
And that is so important. Nothing new can happen in your life if you're running 200 miles an hour.
That's right.
So you've got to create some white space. You've got to create some margin, because really your idea for this new TV show may not have ever come if you were still like trying to do that conference. So I think that is really, really a great piece of advice, to look at those things and know what you're supposed to be doing and what you're not supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
It's just as important.
Yeah.
So maybe there's somebody in the audience and you are in a company, in an organization. You're not necessarily going to go out and start a business of teaching, coaching swimming lessons.
Right, exactly. Right.
But you can be an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur within that. How do you foster that culture of innovation?
If you're the organizational leader, there's a couple of things that you can do, and these are not quick and simple things. You have to figure out and decide as a company who owns the intellectual property and the rights to those new initiatives, and that can get complicated.
Right.
And how are ideas going to rise to the top and not get squashed at the managerial level and can go all the way to the top? So there are definitely things that you can do. You know, you can put in place entrepreneurial time. So Gmail, which I'm on Gmail, you're probably Microsoft Shop. Gmail came out of a Google employee having, I think they have 10% of their work time can be devoted to their own initiatives. Post-it notes came out of 3M from employee innovation. Sony PlayStation was a junior employee who was originally an intern and was tinkering with another device and found a way to create a whole new type of gaming system. There are things that you can do as an organizational leader to create those conditions. Those are just three ideas.
Sure. Well, and you said the leader. The leader has to create an environment where it's okay.
Yeah.
And we're not going to use the word failure.
Right.
I'm going to use experiment.
That's right. Experiment.
It's okay
I love that term too. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think about, you hear Skunk Works a lot, you know, and that was born out of, in 1943, during the war, the Germans came up with this fighter jet, right? And the U.S. Department of Defense hired Lockheed and said, you guys go build a prototype. And the Skunk Works, if you guys don't know where that came from, they took their chief engineer, he took an elite team, they moved away from the Lockheed HQ into another building.
Yes.
And they built a prototype. And the U.S. Department of Defense gave them 180 days. I think they did it in 137.
Wow.
So, you know, really, it's like you have to carve out that elite team and move them away from the operation because you don't want to affect the operation.
Right. That's actually a concern that, you know, many leaders have for innovation, and why corporations are often kind of antithetical to innovation is because organizations exist to master processes that serve their clients. And so once you figure it out, like, let's just keep things the way that they are. But innovation is the exact opposite from that. Although there are two types of innovation. There is disruptive innovation, which is what you're talking about, right? You have to pull them aside. There's also sustaining innovation, which is taking what you're already doing, you know, with your clients, with your customers, and creating innovation without disruption.
Right. And that's the continuous improvement. Type philosophy.
Yes.
Well, very good. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to take a second and tell you about something our team at Technology Partners can do for your business. We have spent over 2 decades partnering with organizations and helping them solve their IT needs from a 360-degree perspective. A huge part of how we solve those needs is by developing custom applications of all shapes and sizes. If your team is looking for software and an out-of-the-box solution just isn't right, it's time to consider how we might be able to help. Go to tpi.co/custom apps and learn more about our awesome capabilities. So, do we have a question?
Yes.
All right, Keisha.
Yes. I'm Keisha Kent, and I have just something that's burning. I understand that networking is a superpower. What are some ways, your top ways, that you go into a space when you know no one and connect with people? What are ways that you do that, and how do you prepare here and here?
Be more interested than interesting.
Yes.
So I'm interested in you. I want to know about you. Tell me about you, right? I'm not always that way. I'm not up here being a Pollyanna going, I always do it the right way. But I mean, it has been situations where I have been across the table from somebody and the time is gone and they're like, well, I didn't even get to hear about you. I'm like, oh, we'll do that next time. But I want to know about you. Because then, Keisha, once you know about them, then you think of the other people in your network and say, okay, Keisha is really she's looking for an executive coach right now. Well, guess what? I know Erin Joy. I'm going to connect the two of them. So, Keisha, since you asked the first question, which of these books is most relevant to you right now?
Eat the Frog.
Eat the Frog!
Good. Excellent.
There you go. Hi, how are you?
Good to see you again. Good morning, Monique Bino with BCI in St. Peter's. So, Erin, when you were talking to Lisa and sharing, it seems like you're an outside-of-the-box thinker. So my question is, what aspects of entrepreneurism do you find to be true, but most would disagree with?
Probably the idea that you have to work all the time. You know, it's in my research to focus instead on being well, and I am not striving for what people would call work-life balance, because that kind of implies that things are actually in balance, and my life is so out of balance. I mean, and I like it that way. My objective is having things work in harmony with each other, and they do. And not always perfectly, but for the most part, I experience a lot of harmony in my work and life and how those things interface. And so the idea that you have to work all the time and you have to be so dedicated and so all in, and you can't take the evenings off or take a lunch break. I don't subscribe to any of that. And that is, for me, how I keep my energy high, to put out energy all day, every day, and to keep going after almost 25 years of entrepreneurship. And there's definitely a culture, particularly in the startup culture, around, working 16 hours a day, don't sleep, don't take time off, don't go see your girlfriends. But again, my research will show, and there is other research not specifically related to entrepreneurs that shows that really what we want to do is focus on taking care of ourselves and focus on being well and being happy, and let that drive our business.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
true. Which of these books?
Definitely Go-Giver.
The Go-Giver. Awesome.
And I just want to add on one thing about this, because I think it's really
Yes.
relevant for all of us. And that is that, we all get into business, whether it's a job or starting a business, because we want to make money and we think that the money will make us happy. And again, all the research shows that after your basic needs are met, and you have everyone
Food,
here
shelter, clothing.
everyone here has their needs met. You have transportation to get here. You have a phone, which is a $1,000 computer in your pocket. That actually, as income increases, happiness decreases, because you tend to get on a cycle of materialism, keeping up with the Joneses, wanting to compete. And so I think the more that we can stay focused on what really matters in a society that has us focused on not that, it's critical.
We have to be intentional.
Yeah.
We have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
There's another old book called I Dare You. It was written by Danforth that founded Purina years ago. Have you guys ever read this book? It's this little, it's very small. You can probably still get it on Amazon. But his whole thing was health can buy wealth, but wealth can never buy health. And so if you get unhealthy, I don't care how much money you have, you're unhealthy. And so it's incredibly important to take care of ourselves. Hi, Emily.
Emily Rao, yes,
Emily
Emily
Rao.
Rao Consulting. Thank you guys so much for doing this. This has been unbelievable and so useful. A question for both of you, as two women who have started successful companies. You've gotten to this point in your career, and you've so generously shared your lessons and experiences. I'm curious about going kind of back to when you first started. How did you cultivate that resilience that you guys talk about being so important for entrepreneurs, and sort of steer yourself away from the comparison game and now it's so easy to hop on Instagram and see all the successful startups and all that kind of thing? How did you really stand in your own truth and confidence when you started, before you had those traditional markers of success?
Well, when we started our business, there was no internet.
No Instagram.
That made it easy.
Seriously. I remember having a bag phone,
Yes.
I mean, there was no internet. So we didn't have those distractions. I mean, we have more data coming at us today than ever in the history of civilization. And data's good. But Emily, we all still have those moments where you're like, oh, well, that business is doing X number and we're doing this. But here's the reality, and I know you guys have heard this before. I got to do me. I got to be the best version of me. I don't want to be Keisha. I don't want to be somebody else. I need to be the best version of me. And, we're doing what we think we need to do every single day in our business, and staying true to yourself like that. But great question.
And I would add to that, I was going to say the same thing, that I think that doing the work to really know yourself and what you are truly committed to, what you're dedicating your life to, I think that's the first step. I think the second step, or what you asked what I did early in my career, so I'll come back to what I think the second step is. What I did early in my career was I started working with a coach. I started working with a coach about 22 years ago. So, and that's part of how I got into the business of coaching and consulting, was I had consumed a lot of coaching. But I think that even the broader answer is to not listen to the voices in your head. Or the voice. There's only one. If you have more than one, we should talk.
We need another podcast.
Yes.
You have more than one.
But the voice in your head is not you, and it is not your friend. And doing the deep work to observe the voice without being the voice is some of the most transformational and profound work you can ever do, and it will impact your career and your quality of life and your family and your parenting and your health like nothing else I've ever done.
So, Emily, which book?
Okay, based on my question, which one do you think I need?
Oh, gosh.
I've read the middle one, so maybe.
You've read this one?
Maybe
This one?
Saffron.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, how are
I'm
you?
doing good. My name is Maya. I am starting a business called Maya L. And my question I wrote down because I have a terrible memory. Right now, I'm on a journey to becoming a motivational speaker. I have finding myself in my journey. I've allowed myself to sacrifice down to nothing. Right now, and this is a testimony, I don't have gas at home, but I am joyful. I am happy, and everybody around me is happy, and I think they see that in me. And I'm encouraged and excited for what's to come. So I have a saying that I am on purpose, I am poised, I am powerful, protected, patient, and my payoff is coming. Although I know these things, I am scared to death to take the leap of recording a video or recording a podcast myself. So my question is, what advice do you have for people ready to take the leap, but have the person and not the spirit telling them that it's too big?
It's a beautiful question.
It is. I'm motivated just by hearing you. Seriously, I really am. I mean, you're all in.
Yeah.
You are all
It's been
in.
a really big journey, and what's so funny, I grabbed this book because we're talking about books. On this journey, I've learned that my spirit, I named it The Spirit of Self-Mastery. I've learned from this book by Robert Lee Camp, Love Cards. It tells you based on your birthday what your destiny could be. And one of my cards is the self-mastery card. And so that's what's keeping me motivated. But the leap to put my face out there, the leap to let people hear my voice is very, very scary.
Yeah. So that broad question is about being fearless. And we all have access to being fearless, to not even indulging in the conversation that we have with ourselves that would provoke fear. There is no real threat to most of us, probably all of us in this room. Our lives are not in danger. But we live like the fear of expressing ourselves is the same fear as being chased by a lion. And they are not the same fear.
At all.
And so I think we first have to establish that.
Okay.
That is a disciplined mindset that you can develop in yourself. There is no real threat here. My real threat is being embarrassed. Well, how bad do you want it, and how much of a difference do you want to make? Because if you want it bad enough, and you really are committed, no kidding, to making a difference, you will embarrass yourself. You'll be willing to embarrass yourself in honor of what you can make possible in the world.
Yeah, I believe that.
So,
I feel that.
yeah. Okay, so here's what I would say. I totally agree with everything Erin said. I would say start small. I mean, don't feel like, oh my goodness, you've got to be the other Lisa Nichols. There's another Lisa Nichols that's a motivational speaker. Don't feel like you have to be her from the get-go. Start small. And I would say start with what I would call friendlies. Start with friends and family. You know, start with a trusted inner circle of people that you can start doing those videos. Because I will tell you something, there's always a next level.
I have videos. I just am scared to death to post them.
Right. Well, like I said. Yeah, okay. So, but start with a small group of people, almost like a focus group. In technology, we call it what is called an MVP, which is a minimal viable product. So if you've got a new idea, you don't start with this $3 billion system. You start very small, you get it out there in the marketplace, and then your people in your focus group and your customers and your potential customers, they'll tell you what you need to change.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Start getting it out there.
Okay.
You know, and get some feedback.
Thank you.
Feedback is a gift.
Yeah, yes it is.
Oh, which book do you want? We've got How to Win Friends. You probably read both of them. They're referring.
I haven't read either of them.
Okay, either one.
How to Win Friends.
Okay,
you go.
go.
It's a classic.
It is a
Truly,
classic.
truly.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Lucian Blackwell. What both of you ladies have to say is absolutely phenomenal, so thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
I guess, Erin, I was more interested in what you said about mission and margin. I'm a wealth manager, I'm a financial planner, and I noticed that a lot of times, especially in my space, we go after the big fish, people with all this money, right? However, for me, my mission has always been to bring people up. So that means with bringing people with who don't necessarily have a lot of money, right? However, there's also a margin component. So I'm just interested in both you and actually Erin or Lisa, whoever, as you have begun to build your careers, how do you balance that mission and margin?
For me, they're completely one and the same. Anything that I am doing, you know, being here, Lisa didn't pay me to be here. Surprise. I know you're surprised, but, you know, it's not a paid appearance.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not being paid to be here.
Right.
But I am clear about who my audience is and what strategies I need to deploy to advance my business, you could say to advance my mission. So I say yes to things that are aligned with that. I say no to things that are not aligned with that. My target audience is women business owners, women entrepreneurs, and women in the workforce. So had Lisa said, you know, we're going to have an audience of mostly men, I would have had to think a little bit harder about it, you know, because that's not my audience. But this was an obvious yes because I'm bringing my, you know, audience to this, you're bringing your audience, and I knew that I'd be introduced to new women. So for me, it's got to be very, very clear about what I want to create and what is in alignment with that strategy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. The only thing I would add to that, I love your mission. Those people without money may have money at some point too. Listen, giving back, there is no greater feeling than knowing that you are helping somebody. There's no greater feeling than that. And so that is precisely what you're doing, and I just applaud you. It's a great mission. Stay true to it. Hey, Austin. Hey. I'm sorry I don't have a gift for you. But you're going to ask the question anyway.
No, I'm going to ask the question anyway. I do really appreciate what both of y'all had to say today. I think it was really, really encouraging. And I guess my question really for both of you is, as an entrepreneur, I guess it's easy to get obsessive over things. Like we have an idea, we have a start, and we get fired up. So how does that, as it grows, how would you guys say you balance that obsession and drive with not driving everyone around you crazy?
That's a good question.
So, yeah, I'm just curious how you guys walk through that, especially in the early stages of an idea, when you're trying to build excitement and then grow, but then as you develop a team, how do you not drive your team crazy? Because you get so passionate about your project.
And they may not be on the same track that you're on, or the same speed, right?
Right.
I am totally obsessed. I'm totally obsessed with building my business and bringing my vision into reality and making that positive impact all over the world. I'm obsessed with having stages, you know, in front of thousands of people in the U.S. and in other countries. I'm obsessed with franchising my business to other women in other markets. I mean, I'm totally obsessed, and I'm not concerned about driving the people around me crazy. I don't have that concern. I have people who I work with who are their version of obsessed. It's not the same version as mine. And I have worked to have them be aligned on what we're creating. So I talk about what I'm creating with people who are stakeholders and who are bought into it, right? So my coaching team, a little bit with my family, my employees, some dear friends. Outside of that, if we were together, I'd be using the strategy that Lisa was talking about, which is asking questions and getting to know you. I think it definitely is a balance to share about your vision without needing people to validate it or without using it to somehow look good, you know? And so when there's not some hidden agenda behind there that is driving your sharing, then I think that, you know, you can be more present with people and be like, oh, I think I've said a little too much. I'm going to shift now and ask her about, I'm going to ask Lisa about her and what she's up to next. But if there's your own agenda that's in the way, you know, you just can't be as present with people to know kind of how to be in the conversation, if you will. That's how I think about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You know, and the thing that I would add to that, Austin, is really, it's your idea, it's your baby. Nobody is going to be quite as passionate as you are about it. You know, nobody's going to care quite as much as you do. And I think just going in, knowing that with your eyes wide open and having patience with the people around you, because they may not be on the same speed that you're on.
Right.
But you know what? Your team is counting on you to be obsessed, because that is what's going to drive the vision. That's what's going to drive innovation, the reinventing of yourself, because, we didn't even get into that, but every organization has to reinvent themselves or they're going to be irrelevant, right? And we know of companies that are irrelevant today.
Right.
So nobody's going to be as obsessed as you are, but having patience with your team and knowing what their strengths are. I don't know if she's in the room. Jenny Hill is my EA. Listen, she's not obsessed in the same way I am, but she's obsessed in a totally different way with details. And I am so glad she is, because, she keeps things running, but she's obsessed in a different way.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Awesome. Thank you both very much.
Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, there she is. There's the obsessed woman. And she's very good at what she does. I'm grateful to have her. Okay, well, you guys, thank you again. Please eat food and mingle and...
Thank you. And kudos to you. Good job. Well done.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc., 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.